Coach Jesse with Ascend Fitness on a topic that will transform everything if you've gone through what I've gone through, and that's overeating, snacking, sugar tooth, whatever you want to call it. And how I really got turned on to this was one day I was coming home from work as a personal trainer. I was getting home late, but I had been at some kind of community event. There was a meal, and I was like, oh man, like free food, I'm going for it. And of course, I ate plenty. I came home, I was still stuffed, I was still full. And as I was unlocking the door and opening the door, I was thinking about how I was going to go straight to the kitchen and see what kind of snacks, what kind of junk food, what kind of chocolate, chocolate or cookies was probably going to be my go-to. And as I was unlocking the door, I remember thinking like, wait a second, like I'm full. Like as I was actually thinking about eating more food, I was like, wait, I'm like really full. And that's when I started realizing that, we can have a habit, we can have, thoughts and a rut in our thinking that doesn't even serve us. It's just like way beyond what I actually need. And it's actually unsupportive. It's actually destructive. And I started realizing that, hey, I've got some appetites that have nothing to do with hunger and my physical needs. It's just purely for my brain. And I started realizing that, I had a few of those, and I started realizing what to do about it. So that's what I want to get into, is how to identify these and what to do about it. And I want to present what I do with snacking that fits in the overall smart eating, paradigm of needs first and like preferences and what we want, later. So with this type of thing, we have to identify, we have to have that moment like I did. And how you can do this is record what you're eating or record the times you think about eating, especially after a meal. A lot of times it's in the evening for people, or the later half of the day. There's certain reasons for this. So it's just identifying the actual pattern, which you can do that by tracking the food you're eating, or the impulse, the thought, and writing it down. What I do is I say it out loud. I'm feeling like eating chocolate. And just bringing a voice, just articulating that impulse for a lot of people is enough to be like, oh, okay, that's like, I don't need to do that. I'm not going to. These impulses, you could call it a temptation, they usually go in waves. And it's literally just a matter of withstanding those waves. It's just a matter of knowing, like, okay, a couple minutes later or a couple moments later, I'm probably going to have the same impulse. So then we have to possibly go deeper. Okay, what might I be feeling right now that is making me have this impulse? Because it's not just coming from nowhere. I would say it can come from nowhere, which is how deep rooted it was for me. It just got to the point where, because I was stressed, because I wanted to unwind, I'm driving home with just 1,000 things on my mind. Eating some sugar is definitely a fun thing to do that can take your mind off of what you're feeling. And that was the habit. That was what I was doing. So I started to identify that, and I started to realize this is attached to stress, and this is a way that I'm trying to cope with the pain, the psychological pain of stress or of like the hard day, whatever it was. But eating food is just one coping mechanism, and it turns out to be a coping mechanism with consequences that aren't going to support you towards your goal. So there's lots of other coping mechanisms. That's for you to lean into and discover. But ultimately, we have to identify these, and we have to begin changing these one by one and rebuild the habit. If you've ever heard of neuroplasticity, that means that you can do this, that your brain, your neurons are wired one way, but when you choose to respond to an impulse differently, our brain begins making a new road, a new path of thought and action. And then every time we do it, every time we do reps, just like at the gym, it gets reinforced. And the more it gets reinforced and the less we go down that other path, that one erodes on its own. And this is how habit change is possible. This is total breakthrough. So not only have I gotten to this, that my overall impulses have I just probably have them less, or maybe I have them once. I don't have so many follow-ups because I don't go down that path anymore. If I do go down that path, then I'm maybe not going straight to chocolate or something like that. So this is absolutely possible. But I do want to get into like why there is a rationale for snacking. And when I call it snacking, I don't just mean having a bunch of like chocolate and chips and pretzels. I just mean a miniature meal that serves a purpose. So the primary purpose is to fuel your body to supply maybe something protein sparing, like it's before a workout, or maybe it's in the middle of the day and you need a boost of energy. Holding off hunger, this is a big one. If you're like not eating breakfast, eating a late lunch, you're gonna have all this backlogged hunger and all this pent up like emotional desire to eat, that now that you're off work or whatever, it's like it's free, it's not restrained anymore. So that's a lot of times where evening snacking while cooking dinner, snacking after dinner, that's where all that comes from. So a proper mini meal, a snack, can actually hold off that hunger so you don't have these crazy spikes in hunger that's just so hard to control. So that will help us from overeating. And I know that experientially, I've proven this for myself. So just some do's and don'ts. When you're making a snack, you have to actually measure out the portion. And if it's like some chips or pretzels or something, you cannot just go directly from the container. Actually look and say, okay, one serving is 170 calories. I'm going to have half a serving or one serving or 1.5 servings. And then that's it. Put the bag away and don't go directly from the container. Another thing too is I'm balancing the macronutrients. So if I'm having like carbs or sugar only, that's going to elicit an insulin response. But if I have protein and fat with that, it's going to be a more muted, a more subtle insulin response, which is for most people is going to be very beneficial. And then also prepping snacks ahead of time. Carrots and hummus, Greek yogurt's big one, high protein Greek yogurt, cheese sticks, something like that. Just having it ready. If you want to learn more about that, I have a video on meal prep. It's awesome. There's kind of these two categories that I've talked about with food. If we need energy, I can do an energy dense snack. That might be something like a granola bar, some fruit, but it might not make me full. So if I need to feel full, then I may need to do some high satiating foods like some beef jerky, yogurt, which is high in protein, something like that, a protein shake, because that's going to actually take up physical volume. It's going to help me feel full. And when I think of a snack, like 10 to 15 grams seems to be enough to provide stable energy and will provide protein sparing. And that's pretty common, like an RX bar, 12 grams of protein, something like that. Greek yogurt's like 14 to 16 grams of protein. So a lot of the stuff that's just packaged, ready to go, it's in that range. In general, things that we want to avoid to control hunger, control overeating. In the morning, you don't want straight sugar. You're spiking your insulin. And then a lot of that sugar might get stored in unwanted ways like body fat. And then your hunger hormones are going to actually increase with that. Midday, like afternoon grazing, like 2 to 4, 2 to 5, 2 to 5 in the afternoon. We really want to avoid that. So we have to have a plan in place. And then before bed, this is a big one. And there's a functional thing going on here. Before bed, I am limiting calories. I'm limiting especially carbohydrates or something with caffeine like chocolate, or I know some people are fine doing that. For me, I'm not. Anything after like 2 p.m. I'm a chatterbox, and which I already am anyway. So anyway, before bed, I'm really like in my meal, I'm going low carb, and I am only rarely having, some extra additional calories before bed because I'm trying to wind down. I'm not trying to inject myself with quick burning energy. So again, when snack is merited between meals, maybe before or after a workout, if you're not having a meal or, you're working out and it's going to be a gap between meals. And so you want to do some protein sparing and have some sustained energy for the workout. And like in the afternoon, like a piece of bread, a banana, half a banana, something like that, half a granola bar, something like 100 calories, that's plenty to give yourself a boost of energy, a little pick me up, but you can't let it turn into a whole eating extravaganza. And at the end of the day, what I've realized in this that I want to extend to you, this is not popular, but it's true. And we can't have whatever we want, even though we could have it, just because we want it. We can't have whatever we want when we want it in whatever quantity we want it for whatever reason. We have to guide ourselves along a narrow, strict regimen. And I know that doesn't sound fun, but like we're no longer able to just do whatever we want, or else we're going to get consequences that we don't want. So we have to pull it in. And it's not even that strict. It's just a matter of changing our mindset about this. And you're going to actually love it. You're going to be seeing the results, seeing the benefits, and taking care of your body. So we're either committed to this or we're not. My takeaways for you is proper snacking. You can avoid overeating, avoid over snacking, and then a typical snack when there's protein involved, you're aiming for that 10 to 15 gram range and you're going to be good.